Okay, folks, it's looking like we can get ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and call the City Council meeting of March 11th to order at 6:03 p.m. We'll go ahead and start. If you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you very much. All right. So we will go ahead and start by doing a call to order, which I just did, and a roll call. So, Ms. Trimble, if you'll go ahead and do just a roll call for the meeting, that would be helpful.
Absolutely. Beginning with Anderson.
Present.
Becerra.
Present.
Campbell. Absent.
Yes.
Carlino.
Present.
Farmer.
She's absent this evening.
Absent. Jones.
Present.
Jordan.
Present.
Melson.
Present.
Nugent.
Present.
Savage.
Present.
Sherrill.
She's absent this evening.
And Pasica.
Present.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Ms. Trimble. Appreciate that. Welcome, everybody. We'll move on to item number 2, which is approval of the minutes. And in the council packet, there are minutes from February 22nd as well as February 26th, 2024. Do any council members have any questions or changes to any of the minutes? Okay. Great. Then those will go ahead and stand approved. Moving on to agenda item number 3. This is announcing changes to committee meeting agendas and committee member approvals. So we have a committee schedule for March 13th, 2024. I am aware of one change, and that is on the Climate Conservation and Parks Committee agenda for the Energy and Climate Team. And I'll look to the chair and make sure that I'm correct there. Councillor Savage, would you like to speak to that or say anything in regards to that committee change?
Yes, I think that this coming week we are going to, I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses on. Give me 1 second here. The interviewing of the new applicants, we're going to hold off on that for a bit. So I think that the Climate Conservation and Parks Committee will be 9:30 to 10, and we will reschedule those 10 and 10:15 interviews.
Okay, great. You think? Yep, sounds good. Thank you, Councillor Savage. And Ms. Trimble, did you have any questions before we move on from that agenda item?
No, that'll be reposted on the website.
Great. That'll be updated and reposted on the website. Okay. Thank you very much. Great. All right, that brings us to agenda item number 4, which is special presentations and proclamations. So as we continue to implement the new city council meeting format, I just wanted to highlight a point. In the past, we have called for public comment following a motion, whether that was procedural or substantive. And going forward, public comment will come before council motions. I won't call for public comment following council motions unless the action presented in the motions is significantly different from the original. So as mentioned last meeting, if it's procedural in nature, we won't do public comment on that. But if there is any sort of amendment towards the motion made, then we'll make sure that we allow for public comment if it's substantive. Our main item of interest tonight is to add a requirement that a local registration number be displayed on short-term rental listing platforms. We will take that up right after final consideration on the city's second quarter budget amendments. We don't have any neighborhood council updates this evening, but we do have a couple of proclamations. All right. The first being celebrating Women in Public Office Day. So, whereas the month of March is Women's History Month, which celebrates the significant contributions women of all races, ethnicities, and backgrounds have made to the world, and whereas women play a critical role in the vitality and diversity of our communities and are essential in ensuring Montana is well represented, and whereas while the 20th century was a pivotal time for growth for women entering politics, women remain underrepresented in male-dominated fields, and providing opportunities to support women in public office is imperative. And whereas recognizing women in public office will bring awareness to the fundamental necessity of their work and inspire other young people to serve their communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Missoula County Board of County Commissioners, the Mayor of the City of Missoula, and the Missoula City Council that March 19th, 2024 hereby be proclaimed Celebrating Women in Public Office Day, and call upon the people of Missoula and Montana to unite as we support the success of women in public office and observed every March 19th with appropriate activities, events, and programs. We're reading this into the record early because there will not be a city council meeting next Monday. All right. Then we have a second proclamation. Second proclamation is our Transit Operator Appreciation Day. Again, we're reading this a little advance into the record here. Whereas public transit benefits us all in Missoula by reducing traffic and parking congestion, improving air quality, and making our city more equitable and accessible to all. And whereas public transit operators fill an important role in our community by getting people where they need to go from work and to school to medical appointments, grocery stores, social and civic commitments, and other essential components of meaningful community engagement. And whereas public transit operators frequently go above and beyond the call of duty, working long hours and safely operating our transit system in rain, snow, extreme cold, wind, and a wide variety of challenging circumstances. And whereas public transit operators help build a connected and resilient community by knowing their passengers, celebrating their successes, aiding in times of crisis, and greeting them every day. And whereas Mountain Line and UDash provide essential services to our community at zero fare for the benefit of all residents and visitors of Missoula. Now, therefore, I, Andrea Davis, Mayor of the City of Missoula in the state of Montana, hereby recognize the 18th day of March 2024 as Transit Operator Appreciation Day. I do recognize that we have a retired transit operator in the audience. Thank you for joining us tonight. Nice to have you here. Thank you for your service. All right. So that concludes agenda item number 4, and moving on to public hearings. So, state law and city council rules set guidelines for inviting community comment in a formal way on certain issues following a presentation on each item. I'll open the public hearing and I will invite the community comment. City council will then vote on the matter unless there is a requirement for final action at a subsequent meeting. So for our public hearing this evening, 5.1, we have our fiscal year 2024 budget second quarter amendments. We do have a staff member available to provide additional information, and that is Eric Hallstrom. And we did hear from Ms. Griffin last meeting, a full presentation. So, Mr. Hallstrom, is there additional information that you would wish to provide?
No, thank you, Mayor. Eric Hallstrom for the record, City's Chief Operations Officer. And we don't really have anything to add to the presentation from last week. We would just request that upon the conclusion of the hearing tonight, Council approve the resolution for second quarter fiscal year 2024 amendments to the annual appropriations. Thank you.
Thank you for providing that summary. All right. So then, are there any questions from council? Not seeing any here in the room and looking online. Not seeing any online. Okay, great. So then we'll go ahead and open the public hearing and take public comment. And yeah, sorry, just read my notes here. Is there any public comment on this agenda item this evening? I can see it better. Come on up to the microphone. If you have public comment, come on up, and it's on this agenda item, specifically this budget amendment. So if it's not on this budget amendment, there's other opportunities for public comment. Not quite yet, but there will be an opportunity for sure. Sure, you bet. Absolutely. We'll go ahead and grab that public comment, and that'll be up next here. So this, again, is item 5.1, and it's the fiscal year 2024 budget second quarter amendments. Looking around to see if there's any public in the room that has any comment. Okay, and is there any online?
There is one online.
Great, thank you. Mr. Larson, go right ahead, please.
Max Larson, Ward 3. I think with this budgeting year, as well as previous budgeting years, it's becoming pretty hard for the council to figure things out. But specifically, we're looking at a mill levy this year for $7 million for the fire department that might fail. So I think that we should prepare as a council for that inevitability, and that might require some shifting things around in this fiscal year. So I think that that's pretty advisable. I'd also like to express my dismay for the reorganization of the meeting in general and the general public comments period being pushed back to an indefinite location. This is really troublesome. It doesn't allow for participation for some of our older and more technologically advanced participants. We need to have a definite location and time for public comments in general public comments in the meetings. It doesn't have to be some sort of floating, moving target that where we can just kind of wait out everybody. That seems very unfair to the public, and I'm very dismayed at this new format. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Larson, and I will note that public comment on items not on the agenda is always number 10, and it's always posted, so it is not floating or random. It is number 10 on the agenda this evening. Okay, is there any other public comment on this agenda item, specifically around the budget amendment? Oh, pardon me, excuse me, hold on. Sorry, Mr. Moore, I didn't have the mic on. Thank you very much. Please go ahead and say and spell your name.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead and say and spell your name one more time. The mic wasn't on.
Moore.
Okay.
Same as it was last time. I completely agree with the person in front of me. I think it's nothing but an attempt to silence the public speaking, and I'm totally disagree with it.
And I'll remind people this is public comment on items on this agenda. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Okay, this is the budget amendment. That's what this public comment is for. And as mentioned in previous meetings, we have public comment on items not on the agenda scheduled as number 10. But we have public comment throughout all of our listed and posted agenda items throughout the meeting. All right, is there anybody else wishing to deliver public comment on this agenda item? Okay, not seeing any. I will go ahead and close the public hearing on this. So we will, I would entertain a motion for this. So I was going to say Vice Chair Becerra, but also Councilor Carlino has offered. But please, Ms. Becerra.
Okay. I move that we approve a resolution for the second quarter fiscal year 2024 amendments to the annual appropriations.
Great. All right. A motion is on the floor. Is there any council discussion on the motion? Mr. Nugent.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say that I think it's great that we're 17 minutes into the meeting and people who want to comment on this specific item that we're voting on tonight are able to do it in a timely fashion, and I think it's important to state that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Anybody else? Comments on this agenda item? Okay, and again, these are council comments. Council comments on this agenda item. Okay. Not seeing any council comments. Great. Then we will go ahead and do a roll call vote, please.
Beginning the vote on item 5.1, fiscal year 24 budget, second quarter amendments. Beginning with Anderson,
Yes.
Becerra,
Yes.
Carlino,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
and Visigo.
Yes.
And that passes unanimously.
Great, thank you, Ms. Trumbull. Moving on to item 5.2, that is Title V update for short-term rental business licenses. And we are, we have sponsors, Councilor Savage, Councilor Nugent, and Councilor Anderson. And I've asked Councilor Savage to go ahead and introduce the item tonight.
And I think Miss Anderson is going to start, and then I'm going to wrap
Oh,
up.
great, thank you. Pardon me.
We are going to tag team this.
I love
it. Great. Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. And I want to thank City Attorney Ryan Sudbury for all of his work on this, and for Erin Pehan, who I believe is online, so she'll be able to correct us when we go astray. But the point of this resolution is to create a system where folks who are registered have a way to list their registration number on both Airbnb and VRBO and the subsequent VRBO family of rental sites. And this is a way to encourage people in our community to come into compliance with the ordinance that requires a registration for both short-term or for vacation homes and short-term rentals. We have worked extensively to try to make sure that it is clear who has to come in and register for this, and they will get a temporary registration number as their application is working through the process. I want to thank Councilor Savage for helping kind of walk through some of the pain points that she herself encountered to help make this clearer and make the process within the CPDI department a little more smooth and streamlined for future applicants. We have given quite a bit of a grace period for people to get their application in, to get registered, to have the subsequent inspections that are needed, and to then have the number posted online. This is something that is happening in other communities. Bozeman did this last fall, and so we are not the first ones to do this. The listing platforms know that this is coming, have the ability to list it, and this is just another way to encourage compliance within our regulations, because as noted, there are several hundred units that are currently not registered. Some of them are in process and not listed online as having a registration number. That's why the temporary registration number will be a component of this as well. We are decoupling our city registration with the county health department, which is a state law, because that has also been a point where there has been some lag and things falling through the cracks. And so we wanted to make sure that that wasn't continuing. So folks will have to go through our process and through the health department process as laid out in state law. The only major change for this is that previously under our ordinance, tourist homes were the main target of this, and this will also encompass short-term rentals. What this won't necessarily capture is folks who are renting a room within their home for, the Pearl Jam concert, or these kind of one-off things. But if you are permanently renting your home as a vacation home, or you are owner-occupied, you will have to get registered, and that there will be a more streamlined process for those who are owner-occupied, who are only, say, out of town for the month of December and renting out their home or something like that. I think this also will help Granicus and our partnership with them track homes and make sure that folks who are listing theirs as a short-term rental don't show up there as, you know, a more permanent tourist home, to try to, you know, kind of streamline or to kind of go the easier route. So we have a couple different options for checks and balances, but that kind of gives a quick overview of what the intent for this is, and then within the ordinance, and I think Ms. Savage is going to talk a little bit about this too, a few of the timelines that we've laid out, but we really tried to make sure that we've given a long runway for folks to get into the system, to get their inspection, to get their permanent number, and then to get that listed before any sort of regulation goes into effect, which won't be well into the fall. So with that, I'll hand it over to Ms. Savage. Great.
Thank you. Yeah, and I would like to say thank you as well to staff, because we have put quite a bit of time into this. I'd also just like to add just a few things, because I think Ms. Anderson really wrapped it up well. But part of the extending the timeline had to do with conversations that we had with Airbnb and the runway that they wanted to see in terms of getting an online application up and running at the city. And so we did add 60 days to the timeline, so that a process that is in place that's happening right now, they're trying to get an online application up and running so that they can do that, so that they can start processing applications more quickly. You can still register your tourist home in the meantime, but it was just something that, and conversations with the platforms that we came to. So the city staff did spend quite a bit of time working and having conversations with the platforms as well, just because they are interested in this as well. And I do think that really it all comes back to, for me, doing what Granicus told us to do, which was make sure we were having people in compliance with our current ordinance by having them register, making sure that we monitor how many short-term rentals that we have, and making sure that it was an easier path for registration. So that's what this ordinance attempts to do, and that's all I have, unless there's any other questions.
And I don't know if Mr. Nugent has anything else to add as being our third on this, or if City Attorney Sudbury has anything to add.
Nothing to add. They covered it.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Nugent. Mr. Sudbury, anything from a staff report perspective?
I think it's been summed up pretty well. Just to be clear, there will still remain the Title 20 registration and permitting requirements for tourist homes, and this is the short-term rentals addressed here is kind of a broader term. If you have a tourist home permit under Title 20 or are required to go through that process and get that permit, you'll automatically get a registration number that qualifies for short-term rentals. But for those short-term rentals that are not tourist homes, those owner-occupied units that are rented intermittently, this will cover that situation. And so the CPDI staff will have information on the Engage page or on the CPDI website that identifies what's expected for each type. And then when somebody comes in, if they're unsure, the staff will guide people into the correct permitting process. And this, the short-term rental, non-tourist home permitting process is anticipated to be more streamlined with shorter time frames than the tourist home, which is a little bit more rigorous because it's set up more like a permanent lodging requirement, and that's why there are state regulations that apply, and the Department of Health has to permit those. So there's a little bit more with tourist homes, and they will fall under the gambit of this, but they won't have to do anything additional separate and apart from their Title 20 permitting requirements.
Thank you for that clarification and additional information, Mr. Sudbury. And so I believe this is considered our final consideration because this is our second reading. Councilor Carlino, did you have additional comments to add to the presentation? A question. Okay, great. So we'll come to that next. Thank you. All right.
And you are right, Madam Mayor. This is the second and final reading for vote tonight.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that clarification. So then I'm going to go ahead and follow our format. So the question will be here in a moment, but we do open it up first to public comment because the motion is on the floor. And I'll go ahead and read that motion. It's on the floor, and the recommended motion is to adopt changes to Title V regarding short-term rental restrictions. And again, this is item 5.2 if anybody is following along online. So we'll go ahead and open this agenda item up to public comment, and I'll start with folks in the room first. Do you want to come on up? And just as you're coming up, come on up. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. The mic is on. Please say your name. Spell your last name if you could, just for our clerk. It's helpful. And then also, if you have the ability to tell us what ward you're in, great to know what part of town. And if you're representing an organization, helpful to know.
Okay. My name's Courtney. My last name's Zering. Z as in zebra, E as in elephant, H as in hippo, R-I-N-G like a wedding ring.
Thank you.
So that's how my mom spells it. First of all, thank you guys for putting a lot of time and energy in, because it's really obvious you did. I have a couple questions that are compiled from a bunch of people. So a big thing that people are concerned with is kind of like the faceless platform, as you guys know, because you've been communicating with them. They are not easy to communicate with when they have an issue. So I know that you're giving a large grace period, but consideration for the fact that these are people's lives, people are very dependent. I know, Jennifer, you have one. And if they shut your, if you're very platform dependent and they shut your site down, that's a really big deal. That could lead to you having to sell your home, which maybe people think is a good thing. I don't know. So I just wanted to say that, and a bunch of questions on zoning. We have a bunch of different versions of residential. We also have business zoning. When I have submitted a tourist home registration, they have informed me that you can only have 2 units. What is a unit exactly? There's most people that rent short-term rentals. They have a house on a parcel. They have an alley house, a front house, right? So, to me, a unit is a tax lot, right? Or I think it should be. Maybe you rent the upstairs of your house, but then you have the basement, and you made a little bedroom down there, and you make it so that people can rent separately, because the reality is Missoula is not a high rent town. As Ms. Savage will tell you, it's a low rent town. Most of the people that rent these are coming to soccer games. I swear to you, they're seeing people in the hospital, they are checking on their kids, they're visiting the new baby because their brother lives down the road. So most of the time, they don't want to rent a whole house, they want to rent a room, or a little basement thing, you know what I'm talking about. So I guess clarification of that, in my opinion and the opinion of others, that should be a tax lot as we pay taxes on that lot, right? But you guys have your own opinions, so clarification of that, especially when it comes to 2 units per. So maybe somebody has 3 rooms broken up into this one house. They can't rent that as they couldn't rent those to people as a house by law, So what are those, right? Sorry. So, okay, I think you guys went over that, and then how do the fees apply, right, to these units? And, I think that's it, other than considering cross-zoning. So, a lot of zoning in Fort and Franklin, which is where you'll find actually a lot of these houses, are cross-listed. So, if you have a business 2 zoning, you also might have an R145. How does that apply? I think that's all my questions. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Really appreciate that. And if there is opportunity later through council comments to answer some of those questions, we'll attempt to do so. Or we can always get you connected with our city staff to make sure that those questions. Okay, great. Thank you. And you submitted that to council? Yeah. Okay, great. Then we have a way to follow up with you then. Excellent. Thank you. Are there other public comments on this agenda item this evening? Hi there. Come on up.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Mike Wilson. First, I want to start with a question. Are out-of-state
Just get to that mic a little bit so folks online can hear you, Mr. Wilson.
My name is Mike Wilson.
Thank you.
Don't really wish to identify where I live in the city. So first, I want to start with a question. Can people who reside out of state apply for these short-term rentals? Can they buy property here and rent that out here? Okay. Okay. I think it's really important for us to put a lot of emphasis on how important it is, just like it's important for the United States to not allow people outside of the country to invest in our real estate, for people outside of the state to not be able to come here with their money and buy our real estate, make it uncomfortable for us. Now, I realize this is to the advantage to people who already have a great deal of real estate because their property, prices are going to go up. It's a good thing. If you're already established, people coming in investing can be great. But for people who already live here, it's not such a great thing. It sucks to have to experience growing up in this city or in this state and realize that it's becoming so incredibly difficult because of out-of-state investment. We need to make sure that we don't set ourselves up for failure when it comes to the whole, the conglomerate, all of the people. Some people will stand to benefit, but we need to make sure that everybody's being looked out for. I suppose that's all I've got to say. So I think it would be wise for us with short-term rentals to make sure that perhaps we only allow people who already live here, who are residents, to buy these properties and profit from that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Wilson. Are there others in the room that wish to speak to this agenda item this evening? Come on up.
Hello, my name is Lynn Redding, R-E-D-D-I-N-G, and I haven't been following the latest things that all of you have been working hard on since the new fee structure was instituted. So I received a notification from VRBO that this meeting was happening tonight, so that's how come I knew it was happening, and that that it wouldn't be possible really to list a property in the city limits unless you have this registration number. So I wanted to find out, VRBO attached in the message the documents, but I don't understand where to find whether everybody needs to comply with this at this point, or I guess my understanding from before was that, not everyone was required to have health inspections and, all the whole other thing related to tourist homes. Anyway, it seems like you won't be able to use these platforms unless you have a registration number. So where do we go to look for what we need to do to comply is the question.
Thank you for your comment, Ms. Redding, and your question certainly can be followed up by staff. And so if you want to leave your contact information, also feel free to contact, you can through our website. You can find phone numbers, emails for the Community Planning Development, CPDI department. They're the ones who help manage the short-term rental permitting process, and your questions certainly can be answered. You can also reach out to the mayor's office online, and we'll make sure that we connect you to the right staff as well. Okay, you bet. We recognize this is a change, and we want to help you be compliant, and so we're happy to be able to work with any to answer your questions. You bet. All right. Anybody else in the room wishing to make public comment on this agenda item this evening? Oh, we only allow for one comment per, but we'll welcome emails to come back in. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move to public comment for folks that are joining us online this evening. Is there any public comments online? Mr. Larson, I see your hand is up.
Yes, Matt Larson, Ward 3. It's been far too long that people have been out of compliance with this and that the city has been allowing this. So it's good that the city is doing something now, as we've been asking for it for a long time. And it's kind of a half answer in that the city has the city county health department and chooses not to really fully address the situation with the city county health department inspections that are needed, even after the fees went up around 300 or 400% or more last time I checked for the registration of the Airbnbs. So we should have more than enough money, or maybe we need to up the fees some more so that we have enough money to get these things all circumvented and or fast lane through and registered. It seems as though people are pretty apprehensive to go through with all the registration if they don't know if it's going to be complete anyway. But that being said, I'm happy that they're doing something at the city to register these, and that they're speaking with Airbnb directly. That's great. But again, if general commentary is at a regular time, you might as well list it on the regular agenda. If you could list general commentary at a regular time and place, that would be helpful, I think, for some of our elder individuals who know when and where they can be to give general commentary, so they don't have to fight against the clock and stay up past all of the consent agenda and everything else. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Larson. And is there anybody else online that wishes to speak to agenda item 5.2? Not seeing anybody else online. Okay, great. That wraps up our public comment on this agenda. And I will just mention again that doing a quick website search of how do I contact my representative will get you to a host of different contacts to contact either your ward representative. You can send an email, or their phone numbers are on there, as well as the mayor's office. And then in particular for this issue on our website, as well as on Engage Missoula, there's also city staff that are managing this issue and can help you answer any questions. All right, that wraps up public comment, and I will close the public hearing. So now we'll move on to a council motion and discussion. Who's making the motion this evening? Oh, it's already on the floor. Thank you. Yeah, I already said that tonight. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks for keeping me in order here. Appreciate that. All right, council questions. Oh, Mr. Sudbury.
I just want to make sure that the motion is on the floor includes the adoption is along with the red lines that were proposed in the sort of version 2, if that's what council is intending. There were, it was attached to the agenda. We had met with representatives from Airbnb who alerted us to some what constitutional issues with some of the things that were identified in the earlier version, and as I think Ms. Anderson noted, suggested allowing a little more leeway in time frames. So we made those changes, and we think that from the SAS perspective, we should adopt the proposed ordinance with the proposed changes. So I just want to make sure that the motion includes that.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes, thank you. I apologize for not clarifying that at the very beginning. Yes, the adopted or the motion to adopt and vote on tonight is attached to the agenda, and it's the red line version. And I think that there's actually a clean version as well, but they are dated today. So just to make a couple of the changes as highlighted in the presentation I gave.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And that, of course, is the version that's online for public viewing. Mr. Sudbury, did you have another comment before we get? Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. Appreciate that. All right. So then, other council comments, discussion. Yes, Councilor Carlino, please.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions and a possible amendment too, but I was wondering if we could just go over the differences between version 1 and version 2 between the time that the Airbnb lobbyists talked to the city about this and what the changes were.
That's visible via the red line. You can see it if you look at the agenda and the attachment.
Okay.
And it basically just adds for a little bit longer time frame to get everyone registered. And then there was some clarification on the types of, and I'm going to pass this to the city attorney to explain that they pointed out that in our original version there was some unconstitutional language in terms of like information that we could get from that entity. So the lawyer will explain that to us.
Yeah, so we mostly copied this proposed ordinance from the approach that Bozeman took. I followed up with Bozeman, and they were also made aware of this. I did some research. There is quite a bit of case law in the Ninth Circuit concerning requiring hoteliers to turn over business records related to names and addresses of the people renting out hotel rooms, and that being an unconstitutional search and seizure under the U.S. Constitution under the Fourth Amendment. And there has been some cases from around the country that have found the same thing with these sort of online hosting platforms. So given that there's not a lot of difference between renting out your home to an individual and renting out a hotel room to an individual, we were persuaded that if a court was to look at this, it's likely that requiring them to turn over a list of names and addresses of people booking the reservations, or the names and addresses of people listing their homes or units on one of these hosting platforms, it would probably be deemed an unconstitutional search and seizure. So we requested a quarterly report with links to their listing, which is what they offered and said that this is common around the country. We can insert those links into our Granicus enforcement software, and they can kind of do the back end search, and we can, once they provide us some information, if we need to know the names and addresses of the owners of the property, we can find that through publicly available information. Additionally, if we come to discover what we think is an unregistered short-term rental, because it's presented to us in a link, and Granicus can't find a registration number associated with it, we can obtain an administrative search warrant through either municipal court or district court here in town and give that to one of the hosting platforms. They have a portal that's available for that, and if we supply them with either an administrative warrant or a subpoena for that information, they'll provide it. So that would be, our constitutional mandated due process for that. So.
Did that answer your question? Yeah, follow up?
Yeah, it did. And then the follow-up was just like why we changed it from 180 days to 240 days, plus the 30 days after adoption. So why did we change it to 270 days from passage instead of the original?
That was in consultation with CPDI staff to make sure that they had time to get all of the information, because there will ultimately be 2 tracks that they have to follow. If you are a tourist home, that's a more onerous inspection process. If you're a short-term rental, that is a more streamlined inspection process per Title 20 as well as state law. And so we wanted to make sure that they had enough time to get all of the online back end built out and ready to go. So if you are somebody who wants to make sure that you are registering and being in compliance, that is back end is built, you can go through the process, get everything through the process and online with plenty of time, understanding that CPDI staff has lots of other things. And so it's just making sure that we weren't creating a situation where folks were trying to be in compliance, had their paperwork in process at a time when then we were saying, okay, listing platforms, you must make sure everyone has a number listed, and that we put someone in a pinch. So just recognizing staff's capacity and the fact that there will be some additional building out on the back end, because we've now created 2 tracks where previously there had only been 1.
Thank you for that clarification. I also see that CPDI Director Erin Pehan is online with her hand raised. So Ms. Pehan, go right ahead.
I just wanted to add a little additional detail. One thing that we're focusing on here is using this as an opportunity to create a system that is going to work for us long term. We know that through our increased monitoring and enforcement, and now through this registration process, we are going to have some 260 short-term and tourist home operators who are not currently registered with the city, who are going to be coming in to register with us. Right now, that is done through a paper application, and processing 260 paper applications is going to take extensive staff time. It's not an efficient use of time for both the applicant and for our team. And so we're working with a consultant with our Acela system, which is our business permit and business licensing system, to create a module so folks can go online and do that. we're working on a time frame for that, but that is consultant-driven work, so it's a little bit outside of our control. We wanted to make sure, and Airbnb wanted to make sure that we weren't setting up a timeline that owners and operators potentially couldn't meet because the city didn't have the systems up and ready to go. We know that it will likely happen sooner than that, and we, as we heard through public comment, we already have people who are currently registered tourist home operators who want to come in and get into compliance when this passes. And so we'll have a process for those that are already registered. The good news is if you're already registered as a tourist home operator in the city of Missoula, you will be able to use the registration number that you already have. So all that you have to do when these host organizations open up that registration line on the hosting platform is use the number that you already have that is current for you. It's these new applications that will be coming in that will take that time and resource, and so we want to make sure we have a system that functions far into the future.
Thank you for that clarification and information, Ms. Pehan. All right. Other council comments? Council discussion? Look around the room. Councilor Vasika.
Thanks. I thought there was going to be an amendment or something more, but it's this. Okay, so we're just going to vote on this one. Okay, everyone pretty much knows my feelings regarding a registration of short-term rentals, but I wrote them down so I might make sense. So I initially opposed the requirement to register short-term rentals. I was outspokenly against the recent drastic fee increase. During the last budget season, I advocated for defunding Granicus, and now I find myself once again opposing this unnecessary bureaucratic hurdle, especially considering the challenges faced by families in our current economy. And I do say this as a renter with a young family who grew up here, and I'm just as impacted by the exponential population growth of our town, but I truly believe in my heart that individual rights must continue to be maintained. And this may seem small, but when will the hindrance of private property rights be enough? When has adding more requirements made things more efficient? How well do we honestly expect this to go, demanding this from not only our constituents, but from third parties as well? Especially given one of our very own's difficult navigation of trying to have their short-term rental legal, because that is currently going super well. This is just another hoop that we are going through, and I will say it very loud and very proud. I'm pro private property rights. I don't think that this is necessary. I do believe it will pass tonight, but I just wanted to get my feelings on record. So I'm not going to be in support of this.
Thank you for your comments, Councilor Vasika. Are there others that wish to make comment tonight? Councilor Carlino.
Yeah, I appreciate you all bringing this forward. I think it's a step in the right direction. I was a little bit concerned about the amendments that coming from the Airbnb lobbyists and how lobbyists have quite a say over government policy like this, but hearing from CPDI staff, I feel comfortable without making any amendments. But yeah, this seems to just try to get businesses to do what they're supposed to be doing this whole time and just making it easier for us to track them. So it seems like a positive step forward. So I'm happy to support it.
Thank you for your comments, Councilor Carlino. Are there others? Councilor Henderson.
I'll just quickly wrap up and say, again, thank you to staff for helping work on this, that this is intended to not be punitive, but to bring people into compliance and create a system in which for them to do that, we require, I'm going to respectfully disagree to my neighbor here, that, we require licenses to drive a car or to make sure that your hotel room is safe, and that's just somewhat of the way our society works, and this is another component of that, and some of it is dictated in state law and some of it's here in our own city ordinances. And so this is really using the tools that are available to us with the hosting platforms, creating an ability to list the registration number right on there that hopefully will incentivize folks who are out of compliance to come into compliance, and for those additional folks who previously hadn't had to register, if they were just sporadically using, understanding that there will be a streamlined process for that. So we want to make it easy for folks to utilize this, and that's why we were trying to make sure that we are being mindful of the time that it would be required to do this, and that this will create additional work for CPDI. But I think that with chatting with Aaron and staff, that they have a good plan to put that in place. And thank you for working on this. And I think this is, you know, a nice way to address some of the issues of those outstanding registrations that we hope that will come into compliance, because we want them to. It'll be easy. Come and join us. Yes, and we are mindful that, you know, if people are having problems, to please reach out, because we want to learn how to streamline. And I think that that's what, you know, Ms. Savage was able to really provide firsthand to make this better. So thank you so much.
Most definitely. Thank you for your comments, Councillor Anderson. Are there others that wish to speak this evening? No? All right. No other council comments in the room, and just looking online here. All right. I don't see any online. So then that wraps up our council discussion, and I want to thank you all for working well with the staff and together to come up with this update. So, Ms. Trimble, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote, please.
All right, beginning the vote on Title V updates for short-term rental business licenses as found in the updated attachments dated 3/8/24. Beginning with Carlino.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Nugent.
Yes.
Savage.
Yes.
Sika.
No.
Anderson.
Yes.
Becerra.
Yes.
And that is 8 in favor, 1 opposed.
Great. Okay, motion passes. Thank you very much, Ms. Trimble. That wraps up then item number 5.2. Agenda item number 6 is new business. We do not have any new business this evening. So that brings us to item number 7, which is public comments for items on the agenda. I'm going to be taking the opportunity over next several meetings to highlight changes that City Council adopted to their council agenda format. So public comments for items on the agenda include items that are part of the consent agenda and for regular council business. The city clerk will read the council business aloud, so citizens watching on MCAT can hear what is on the agenda. We invite community comment on these items before we vote. The consent agenda items were approved in city council committees and are voted as a package to save time. Other regular council business includes items that require additional council discussion. So again, item number 7 are public comments for items on the agenda this evening. That includes all of the consent agenda, and it includes regular agenda items, of which we have none this evening to present. So I'm going to ask that Ms. Trimble read the consent agenda, and then we'll go to public comment, and then we'll go back to council for a vote. So Ms. Trimble, would you go ahead and read the consent agenda, please, and the recommended motions with each one?
I'm going to share my screen as well.
Thank you.
Beginning with accounts payable, we have a recommended motion to approve accounts payable or claims for checks dated March 12th, 2024 in the amount of $791,651.03. We have a motion to award the construction bid to Western Excavating for the South 4th Street Water Main Project at a cost not to exceed $879,909.25. And to authorize the return of bid bonds. We have a motion to approve the resolution ordering in sidewalk, curb, gutter, and alley approach improvements without the creation of a right-of-way improvement project for owner-initiated public infrastructure improvements adjacent to miscellaneous parcels in the city for the 2023 project year as established in Exhibit A. We have a motion to adopt the resolution to confirm the final ordering of Ivy Street, Franklin Street to South 4th Street West to Woodford Street right-of-way improvement projects. We have a motion to award the bid for the Ivy Street, Franklin Street, South 4th Street West to Woodford Street right-of-way improvements project to Knife River for the sum of $1,367,309.99 and to authorize the return of bid bonds. We also have a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the city MDT Flynn Lane and Mullan Road Path Projects Funding, Construction, Maintenance, and Local Agency Guidelines Agreement. A motion to authorize the mayor to sign the city MDT South Russell Street Crossing Projects Funding, Construction, Maintenance, and Local Agency Guidelines Agreement. A motion moving city council to set a public hearing on March 25th, 2024 to consider the recommended priorities for the funding available to the city through the State Local Infrastructure Partnership Act. A motion to preliminarily adopt and set a public hearing on March 25th, 2024 for a one-year extension of the interim zoning ordinance 3723 entitled City Interim Urgency Zoning Amendments complying with 2023 state legislation, and referring this matter to the Land Use and Planning Committee for a preview prior to public hearing. This constitutes the first reading. And to preliminarily adopt and set a public hearing for March 25th, 2024 to adopt an ordinance to amend Title 16, Manufactured Housing and Mobile Home Parks, and refer this item to the Land Use and Planning Committee as a pre-public hearing informational item prior to the public hearing. This constitutes the first reading. And a motion to preliminarily adopt and set a public hearing for the March 25th, 2024 to adopt an ordinance to amend Title 20, second round near-term code amendments, and refer this item to the Land Use and Planning Committee. This also constitutes the first reading. And finally, a motion to preliminarily adopt and set a public hearing for March 25th to adopt an ordinance adopting temporary changes found in Interim Ordinance 3719 as permanent, and refer this item to the Land Use and Planning Committee for a hearing prior to the public hearing. This constitutes the first reading.
Thank you very much, Ms. Trimble. And as mentioned, we have no items under regular business this evening. So the consent agenda has been shared on the screen and it has been read for those on MCAT. And now we'll go ahead and open up public comment for items number 8 and number 9 on the agenda, which again are consent agenda items and regular items, which we have none. And so public comment, same rules apply, 3 minutes, and come on up, identify yourself, and yeah, come on up. You can move that down a little bit more if that's more comfortable for you.
Kathleen Kimball, Kimble, and I'm not sure if I'm commenting on 8.3, 8.4, 8.5. I'm commenting on the I.B. Franklin proposed project.
Okay.
And I tried to get my thoughts organized. The first thing is that I'd like to see the order of these votes reversed. There's a vote scheduled for Wednesday about an alternative way of funding, but the vote on doing the project is tonight. So that seems backwards to, confirm something tonight and then have the opportunity on Wednesday, well, not have the opportunity on Wednesday to do a way of funding it that would be inclusive in the entire budget. It seems like, I'm told that the total amount for all the property owners who are going to be billed extra totals $150,000, and it just strikes me that that's an amount relatively small in the giant city budget that could be found for non-urgent, non-essential items. I also want to comment on the misplaced priorities of this project, because the city had determined that there were 15 other areas that are far more in need and wanted to have curbs and sidewalks, places where there are city bus stops, school bus stops, where people are currently waiting in the driving lane or down in the borrow pit. And our small off-street 100 block of East Franklin has neither a school bus or a city bus or even a school bus, even a school route, despite the insistence of some folks who do not live on my block or even on that street. A good place to look is Missoula Missing Sidewalks. It's a Facebook page my husband started, retired mountain lion driver. And you'll see photos there of some of the 15 other areas that the city had determined were far more in urgent need. Places where people are, trying to climb over berms. People are waiting, like I said, in the driving lane, down in the borrow pit. Our little side street is not that. And then there's the issue of mission creep. The mayor and council want to care about the tax burden struggling homeowners and seniors. I strongly advise stopping the mandate of adding beautification projects onto something that should be a simple sidewalk curb. When a sidewalk is proposed right now, you folks don't have the freedom to take into consideration what tax circumstances are that year. Other budgetary economic circumstances might not be existing during other years. This year of the highest property tax increase in the history of Montana, that's not the year to stick a senior couple on Social Security with an extra $9,000 bill. And I have to say, no, I am not going to pay the city government interest payments plus administrative fees for the rest of my life to finance what I feel is a non-priority, looking at those other 15 areas that are above 100 block of East Franklin Street. It's misprioritized, it's not urgent, it belongs in the city budget, and so no, I'm not gonna do the pay you guys, not you guys, but pay the city interest and administrative fees on top of that.
Ms. Kimball, you're after your 3 minutes.
The most affordable housing is the housing you already own. And I don't want this issue be referred to as the sweet spot. And I heard a council member call it that. And I am beyond offended as I struggle to hold on to my home. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Kimball. Come on up.
Try to talk fast.
My name is William Fleischman. I live at 701 Edith Street. I've got everything prepared, so it's been a long day for me working with the Democrats trying to find candidates all day long, and basically for 3 months. I'll do the best I can. Everyone, including Kathleen and I, are in favor of sidewalks in Missoula where they are most needed for accessibility and safety. The Franklin Ively Greenway project is neither needed nor is it wanted by anyone we have talked with. In the same year that Montana's governor turned a deaf ear to the decent folks, county officials who have pleaded with him to reverse his record high property tax increase, I was shocked that the Missoula City Council turned a deaf ear to us. And I just lost my notes. I shake from chemo, so this is tough. Sometimes I lose stuff on the phone. I was shocked that the Missoula City Council would pick this year to force 2 retired seniors to pay an additional $9,000 for a Greenway project that nobody wants in a quiet neighborhood, ranked 16th in priority by city engineers for missing sidewalks. We've lived in our home for 32 years and we hope to continue to live in our home, but this assessment severely affects our ability to remain in our home. It's especially hurtful to us because we see the real need in Missoula for sidewalks in the other 15 areas. In 2018, when the first attempt, if I quit shaking, I'd be able to keep this here. Honestly, I've testified before Congress for wilderness in the 80s, but this chemo's kicking my ass.
You're doing a good job.
Yeah, my hands aren't cooperating very well. In 2018, when the first attempt to build sidewalks in our street was halted by our good friend John Engen. He told us personally in our living room that at least 15 other areas in Missoula were more in need of sidewalks based on safety at school zones and bus routes. Yet here we are. I retired as a bus operator at Mountain Line in 2018. On my Facebook page, Missoula Missing Sidewalks, I have displayed many pics where the City Council should be considering building sidewalks, where disabled adults, seniors, and school kids struggle in the snow. Why do I know this? Because I drove those buses. I loaded those seniors. I lifted those seniors in their wheelchairs when they were trying to struggle over sidewalks, over a missing sidewalk mud zone across from Salvation Army, the poorest of the poor. I helped lift their rear wheels so they could get onto the ramp. I'm 300 pounds. I used to be able to do that. We need sidewalks where they're most needed. At least 20 bus stops on my bus routes are shown where lack of sidewalks seriously impairs safety and mobility issues for seniors, school kids, and the disabled. This priority of building sidewalks at Franklin Avenue seems puzzling. We have heard nothing about anyone in our neighborhood about the project wanting it. Pushing to build this project while ignoring a greater need for people who really need sidewalks.
Mr. Fleischman, please wrap up your comments. You're after 3 minutes, please.
Is a waste of the city's resources. I don't know why the council is pushing it, but it's bad policy. Please pull this project out of the consent agenda and reconsider it on its own merits. Let's stop this vanity project and put the money for sidewalks where sidewalks are most needed. Also, please at least consider holding off until the committee meets on this Wednesday, exploring the better option of no longer forcing adjacent homeowners to pay for projects they don't need or want at the expense of people who do need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fleischman.
Bob Moore, M-O-O-R-E. I would hope that the city council and any city employees would listen, especially to these two people who just spoke. But I know from experience of coming here many times, y'all will not listen to them. You don't listen to them unless they are a builder or a developer or a realtor or of that nature. You never stop. Missoula is going to be bankrupt if y'all keep spending like you do. I hope you listened to the or saw the article in the news about the Missoula's real estate report.
Is this in regards to sidewalks, Mr. Moore?
Yeah, construction.
Or the consent agenda? Items
I'm
on the
sorry?
consent. This is public comment on items on the consent agenda. Please identify which item you're speaking to.
Sidewalks.
Okay.
Sidewalks is part of the construction of a house and so forth. I've asked y'all to fix a light on my street where the sidewalk raises about that much, and I actually tripped on them one day. But since I'm not a developer or a big shot here in town, you haven't fixed my blighted sidewalk. And you're going to assess these people $9,000? You can't be serious.
Thank you for your comment. Are there others in the room that wish to speak to items on the consent agenda this evening?
Yes, Michael Wilson again. Just had a thought. This is tangentially related, but I was thinking for future decisions that are made by the city council, it may perhaps be beneficial if we were to, sounds a little futuristic, but I think this is within our realm of capabilities as human beings to maybe get some developers and collect all of the data that we have so that AI can assess and see which projects are of the highest priority. That way, perhaps on the part of citizens who live here, there may be a little less resentment or upset feelings about what is being done because we have the data and this AI can figure out exactly what should be done based on pure facts, pure numbers. That way we can hopefully mitigate any trying to find a good way to say this, personal motives on the parts of the people who have the power to make the decisions as to what projects we pursue moving forward. Just an idea. Obviously, this can't be done now, but in the future, I think it would create some jobs for people and might actually improve the system as a whole. And I think Montana, we've got a lot of tourism, there's a lot of money coming in, and there's a lot of opportunity for us to really put our best foot forward and really show that we're ready to move quickly and do it in the best way possible. But I'm just a kid, really, but just a thought. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for your comments. All right, anybody else wish to speak on the consent agenda this evening? Not seeing any in the room here. How about online? Mr. Larson, I see your hands up. Please, go right ahead.
Yeah, item 5.4, I would like to echo what's been said before me about pausing this project. It's a beautification project. It's not needed. It seems as though there's other stuff on the priority list that could be in need of the money, and it seems as though there's other funding sources too. It's a pretty hard pill to swallow, but we see it often in council again, and so hopefully we'll see people vote with their hearts here and their minds. We'll plead up to the ivory towers tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Larson. Anybody else online? Okay, not seeing any. Do any council members wish to separate an item from the consent agenda? Councilor Carlino?
Yep, I'd like to separate 8.4 and speak to that now if it's a good time.
If you wish to speak to item 8.4, we'll move that down to regular business.
Yep.
Okay, great. So we'll move item 8.4 down to the Public Safety, Health, and Operations Committee, 9.1F. Okay. So item 8.4 has been separated from the consent agenda. Councilor Vasika?
Yeah, if we're going to be moving 8.4, would it make sense to move 8.5 as well? Because those two look related. Or the two, they're related but different. I'm just going to let Daniel do that. Never mind.
That's okay. No problem. Good question. Legitimate question. Absolutely. All right, so right now we just have item 8.4 being separated. Is there anything else? Okay, great. So then we will go ahead and take a vote, and we'll do a roll call vote since we had a separated agenda item for the consent agenda. So it is items 8.1 through 8.11 minus item 8.4. And I'll read what 8.4 is for the record here. So we're separating item 8.4, which is resolution to confirm the final ordering of Ivy Street / Franklin Street, South 4th Street West to Woodford Street right-of-way improvements project. That item will be moved to regular business. Okay. Ms. Trimble, we're ready.
Ready. On the consent agenda, beginning with Jones.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Vasika.
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Becerra,
Yes.
and Carlino.
Yes.
That's 9 in favor and none opposed.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Trimble. So the consent agenda passes. And now we will move to our newly itemized regular business item, which is consent agenda 8.4. And we will put that under Public Safety, Health, and Operations Committee report. Because that's the, I mean, not the report, but that's the committee it goes under. Am I
No,
wrong?
it's actually a Public Works.
Oh, Public Works, I'm sorry. Well, wrong one. Just checking. Thanks for paying attention. Appreciate that.
I passed the quiz, thanks.
Sorry about that. That's under Public Works and Mobility Committee report, folks. Thank you very much. Councilor Carlino?
Yeah. Well, 8.4 is the motion that orders the adjacent homeowners of this sidewalk project to pay their city-deemed portion to pay for the public infrastructure of the sidewalk, which I don't agree with. I think as a public transportation and public infrastructure, I believe we as a city should cover the cost and not burden homeowners up to $9,000 for a sidewalk project that cuts into their yard. I mean, I've heard from constituents who live along this project for the past 2 years about how this could affect them financially as a family and affect their yard. I, took a phone call from an 81-year-old crying woman last week who was upset about how this is going to cut her garden and help make it harder for her to stay in her home in Missoula by charging her thousands of dollars. I've heard from, constituents who have to move their fence and then are having financial burdens, and then the people that came tonight that live along this project that are having to pay $9,000 on top of their property tax bill to pay for something that's public infrastructure. And I just simply don't agree with it at all. What would it take if we as a city paid for this sidewalk instead of all the homeowners having to pay their portion? It would be 74 cents per $100,000 taxable value. I think a couple dollars is a reasonable cost to put on to people for sidewalk and public infrastructure. I think $9,000 to put on one household for sidewalk in front of their house is absolutely absurd, and it's harming people. It could be different. It really could be. I had a amendment on City Council 2 years ago to increase our sidewalk budget by $100,000. That got very close to passing. We were just one vote away, and that would have been able to cover this cost rather than charging homeowners $9,000. I mean, I could talk all day about this, but just 6 blocks away from this project, simultaneously, we're creating other city sidewalks, and guess what? No individual household is having to pay for those. We as a city are covering those costs over in Montana and Idaho Street. But for certain streets, we charge homeowners, individual households, $9,000, whether they can pay or not. And if they can't pay, then we charge them even more as a city with our current policy. So I just think if we're worried about, through interest rates, to clarify that, but if we're worried about property taxes and worried about the financial burdens on homeowners, this should be at the top of our mind as well, because this is a huge financial burden that is clearly negatively affecting people. And I've heard from a dozen constituents who live along this project. So I'm standing up with them, and I'm going to vote against forcing them to pay thousands of dollars. I will still vote for doing sidewalks, but the way that we're paying for it is absolutely absurd, and I don't think we should continue this in the future.
Thank you, Councilor Carlino. Are there other city council members that wish to speak to this item? Councilor Vasika?
Thank you. Mr. Carlino nailed it, hit it right on the head. I agree completely with him, and I really look forward to sidewalk reform, and I hear all the citizens that are drastically worried about paying for this and potentially losing their home, so I'm with you guys tonight.
Thank you, Councilor Vasika. Are there other council comments on this item? Councilor Becerra?
Thank you. This is a difficult
situation that we're in, but I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. First of all, there's no item on the agenda for this coming Wednesday to talk about alternative ways to fund sidewalks. There's one item that is City of Missoula sidewalk improvements and maintenance agreement, but that's for a specific location on Broadway Street. We will have a conversation about potential different funding mechanisms presented by Councilman Carlino in the next couple of weeks. We have yet to schedule that. I just want to mention that this project in particular precedes my time on council. I've been hearing about the need for this project for a very long time. It has been in our capital improvement project for a very long time. I believe that our staff has been, they've made themselves available to conversations about different ways to fund, to finance this project. So I really want to make sure that that is on the public record, that they have been in communication with several people, all the neighbors, finding ways to make it easier to cover that cost, either by deferment or making use of the different funding and financing tools that we have in place right now. So I just wanted to make those points of clarification. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Councilor Becerra. Are there other council comments on this agenda item? Councilor Nugent.
I have a question for Mr. Carlino, and then I do have comments. I want a little clarification. You talked about residents calling, being concerned about losing their garden space and their fences, but that would happen whether we were paying for that sidewalk out of the city budget or not, correct?
Yes, it would. Unless we're more flexible with our design standards, that would still happen, but it just feels like an extra slap in the face to take their garden or fence and charge them $9,000. But yeah, that would be a separate issue to the funding.
Right. Can somebody clarify for me if we had to pay to acquire any new right-of-way, or if this is all being done in the right-of-way? Is there...
Public Works Chair Becerra?
I believe it's all being done in the right of way. I think that staff, again, has looked at individual segments of the project and worked with the property owners to allow for as much flexibility in design as possible.
Thank you, because my understanding when the first time we heard about this several months ago, we discussed this and staff showed areas where they were flexible and there are areas where the sidewalk's boulevarded and there are areas where it's not and where it meets current sidewalk and where it doesn't. So I do think that the staff has been flexible on this. The funding conversation around sidewalks is very interesting, and I look forward to the conversation. I can point to other situations where the way we kind of fund sidewalks is very broken, but it's more of the unique situations like annexations and sewer hookups and things like that, and mostly the groups that aren't eligible for any of the subsidies or any of the cost shares or things like that. My frustration when we have these conversations and it comes down to this is the city policy. This is the policy that we've had the staff work under. This is the policy that a previous version of this body has set. So if we don't want the staff to implement projects in the way that we've told them to, we need to tell them another way. And I know it sounds like you've got an idea that you're bringing forward. I wonder where we're going to fund that, but I think it's an interesting conversation. But outside of that, these are the rules that we've asked the staff to play by, and this is what they've come back with. The options for spreading out the payments over long periods of time or even holding the payments till sale are under market rate. They're very good, and it can spread out over time, be a very, very low payment. So I understand the frustration, but right now with the rules we have, we either have the choice to follow this and have more sidewalks, or not follow this and basically not do sidewalk projects this summer. That's kind of where we're at, and that's the way I see it. So look forward to that conversation. Hopeful that maybe there's another path. A little bit skeptical, but for today, this is, I think, where we have to be.
Thank you, Councilor Nugent. Are there other council comments on item 8.4? Typically not, and you've made your comments. If this is there's a clarifying point, then I would allow it. But if it's just another point to your change in motion, if I could clarify. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree that city staff is doing a good job and just following the policy that the city council has set. But four of us introduced a resolution 4 months ago to change this, and it's okay that it's not going to happen for today. And I know we've been working with staff and you all to try and set a good time on the schedule for that. But just to answer the question about how we would fund it instead, like I was saying, it would be 74 cents per $100,000 taxable value to cover these costs, which would be added on to the road district. And we would increase people's property taxes by 74 cents per $100,000 taxable value, and then we wouldn't have to charge individual households $9,000 is what I think would be a simplest way, but I'm also open to cutting other things in the budget that are less important to us than city sidewalks. But just to clarify, that's what I would propose as the way to fund it instead of charging these households thousands of dollars.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Carlino. So that wraps up our council comments. Now, I did see that Chair of the Public Works Committee had your hand raised. Would you like to go ahead and make a motion on this item?
I would like to make a motion, but also make a clarification to the presumed clarification that we just heard, that it has not been 4 months. We have been trying to find the time to schedule this item, and also I guess at that point is when we can find different ways to discuss the potential ways to fund the sidewalks in Missoula, and I don't think that that will be during that conversation, and if that leads to budget discussions, then we have that conversation as well. But tonight, I don't think it's when we need to start doing the math about what it would cost to taxpayers, because we don't know for sure. Okay, with that, I will read the motion. I move that we confirm that we adopt the resolution to confirm the final ordering of Ivy Street, Franklin Street, South 4th Street to Woodford Street right-of-way improvement project.
All right, a motion is on the floor. Given that this is a separated item, Ms. Trimble, would you please do a roll call vote, please?
I will, beginning with Jordan.
No.
Nelson.
Yes.
Nugent.
Yes.
Savage.
Yes.
Basika.
No.
Anderson.
Yes.
Becerra.
Yes.
Carlino.
No.
Jones.
Yes.
And that's 6 in favor, 3 opposed.
Thank you, Ms. Trimble. Okay, we will move forward then from item number 9 and move on to item 10, which is public comment on non-agenda items. I'll take a moment to reiterate the change that the City Council has adopted with this agenda. You'll notice this evening that the business of the City Council has been moved up in order. That's because City Council meetings are business meetings of City Council. And so the informational items, like public comment on non-agenda items, as well as mayoral comments and City Council comments, are close together here at the end of the agenda. So we're moving on then to item number 10, which is public comment on non-agenda items. I'll start with folks that are in the room. Is there anybody that wishes to speak on non-agenda items this evening? Keep your comments to 3 minutes, please. Okay, not seeing any in the room. Then I'll go ahead and look online to see if there is anybody wishing to speak to items not on the agenda. Mr. Larson, you're first. Go right ahead.
Yes, Matt Larson, Ward 3. I spoke to this earlier. The non-agenda item public comment, being pushed down to item number 10 on the agenda here is basically not allowing for public participation, especially amongst the older crowd. Would you expect Miss Patterson or somebody who's 92 years old to wait until 2 a.m., as some of our more contentious meetings can go to, or 12:30 in the morning, to wait to start public comments? Or I don't know. We have many presentations often in the consent agenda, and the whole format now is basically blurring when people can voice their concern for non-agenda items. I would really appreciate if they could just, if the city council could just add like a time, maybe an hour into the meeting where they can start public comment for general items, or a general time. I don't know. I think that it's very disingenuous of the city council and the body to switch around these rules, because it will diminish public participation as it already has. It looked like Mr. Moore hasn't held on, as we're an hour and a half into the meeting, and we're just now getting to commentary opportunities that he would have taken 5 minutes in. But that's what I was concerned about, and I think that we should do something about that. And often counselors have expressed dismay when members of the public don't stick around for their responses. And so I think that they should also try and step up the public participation factor if they wish for people to stick around for their responses or even engage at all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Larson. And online, there is somebody that is identified with a phone number. Ms. Trumbull or someone else, can you unmute a 406-529? And I can't see the remaining part of that phone number.
You should be able to use your microphone now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, this is Travis Mateer. You can spell my last name, Mateer, and I'm speaking to the hilarious priorities of Missoula law enforcement, evidently. And this kind of has to do with sidewalks, but not the sidewalk issue that caused so much consternation earlier that I wrote a poem about many years ago. This is about how Missoula police cited a citizen for cleaning up some trash and leaving it on a sidewalk. I'm just kind of amazed because law enforcement didn't seem concerned when an open pit that was on fire and a propane tank exploded. Law enforcement didn't respond to that, although first responders were there, having to apparently maybe dodge some shrapnel. But apparently when a citizen takes it upon himself to start doing some cleanup, well, that's an issue. And I find that hilarious. Since last spring, I warned you guys about vigilantism and people taking things into their own hands because they see how ridiculous the city is, and you guys show how ridiculous you are, every Monday. And now that you push back public comments, I encourage you to continue doing things to show where your priorities are and how the public's input is actually not really a big priority. I know you guys like to do consensus meetings and create the illusion that you're wanting the public to have their input, but when it actually comes to the public, like, especially me, I say things that aren't always politically correct, well, that does seem to be an issue for you guys. And so I did wait for 90 minutes using technology tonight, although it kept on freezing, and I had a difficult time with the time delay between the phone and online. So technology is, just like anything the city touches, turned to like absurdity. But I encourage you guys to continue because there will be a public backlash against the insanity that you guys represent. And it's just going to continue happening. Like, the public will continue being more aware of what you guys are doing with tax dollars, with tax increment financing dollars. You turn firemen into panhandlers. And I'm probably at 3 minutes, and so I'll just wrap it up because I don't want to break any rules of decorum. That's my comment. My name is Travis. I'll be making more comments as the time gives me the opportunity to. So thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Mintier. I'm not seeing anybody else online wishing to make public comments on items not scheduled for the agenda this evening. All right, hold on 1 minute, please. We would just ask for folks in the audience, and I just went online. Hold on 1 moment, please. Okay. Not seeing anybody else online. Normally we don't go back and forth, but I'd be happy to have you come up and make public comment tonight. Come on up. Again, 3 minutes. Please identify your name.
Courtney Zaring. So, major issue we're seeing in the city, which there was like some upsetting comment about in the paper recently, is we have a lot of homeless people, and I know that that's a very, very complicated issue, but parks and right-of-ways and our bike paths and the rivers are things where we need to like clean them up before the summer comes and there's even more. And I live really close to the Johnson Street shelter, and though I'm not stoked about the Johnson Street shelter, it is there, right? So I think that we should encourage law enforcement to have people go there and kind of enforce the tent, because as an environmentalist and graduate of the UM's environmental, I really care about the rivers and the parks, and my friends have kids and they can't bring their kids to the parks where we live or all over this town, and we can't ride our bikes anymore on the bike trails because we're scared. And you know, we're not scared, like, but you know, it's nighttime and there's a lot going on that you don't see on the west side and over by where we live, and it'd be really awesome if that got kind of lifted to the top. And I have a lot of compassion for the unhomed, but there also has to be compassion for us who live in less desirable areas, and we just want to see our city cleaned up, and I know that there's been a lot of efforts on that, and it'd be awesome if that could be something that was looked at, specifically parks and rivers and the bike trails. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Sir, come on up. Nope. Bob, come on up. Mr. Moore.
Bob Moore again, M-O-O-R-E. You know, we're partly talking about funding on the sidewalks, and I just fell over because you may take money from Lambros family for his $10 million shopping center, or the South Street, just about $10 million you approved recently. You're actually talking about giving them $10 million, and a lot of poor people here is going to be assessed with a $9,000 sidewalk. Where are you at? Where are you at? Where are you at, Mr. Nugent?
Mr. Moore, please direct your comments to the presiding officer. Thank you.
That's right, I'm sorry. But think about that. How are you giving welfare checks to developers and builders and bank owners and so on and so forth, and you don't pay for a sidewalk project? 3 of you would pay for it. It's just crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Moore. Mr. Wilson? I know you by name now.
So on the topic of like budget deficits and such, I was thinking, I learned recently that the charges for having a significant amount of meth were extremely, well, not as high as I thought they should be. I think the penalties for the time you have to do and for the amount you should have to pay, if you've got anything to pay, should be much higher. I'm not sure if that bring anything in on the city or state level or the federal level or where that money goes, but I do think if some people listening to this might not agree with me and be really pissed off, but I think if we have more severe penalties for people who break the law, especially when it comes to things like meth, which I have seen meth destroy the lives of so many people and create so many messes around town. And with one of my friend's businesses, she just recently had a huge ordeal I won't get into involving a meth addict, and it caused her a lot of pain and strife. And so I think it would be really beneficial if we do more to combat this and make sure that people who are engaging in these narcotics are dealt with a little bit more harshly. Also, I don't know enough about how this stuff works, but I thought Montana's got so much tourism coming in. There's a lot of money coming in. If we can hold on to that money and make sure it doesn't leave the state as much, that would be beneficial. I know other states, they have tolls. I don't know if we have that here, but if we could implement things like tolls into the state, I think that might bring some money in and keep it here. There's maybe other things we could do to try to keep that tourism money and catch a little bit more of it. I'm going to look into it a little bit more myself and maybe come back and revisit this and bring these ideas to your attention. But that's all I've got for now. So thank you all for listening. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else in the audience that wishes to make public comment this evening? Okay. That does wrap up our public comment on items not on the agenda. Thanks everybody for your public comments. So that brings us to item number 11, which is communications from the mayor. And, something that I thought was important to share tonight, just to reflect on how we are trying to accommodate people planning their time for items that are scheduled for council business. About a month ago, when we had the Fort Missoula historic Old Post Hospital public hearing at the beginning of February. That evening, we had several folks come and address council on items not on the agenda. It was before we changed the agenda format. So we didn't get to the agenda business until about an hour or more into our city council agenda. And we had a hefty agenda that evening. So we had a couple of different breaks. But I remember I had an elderly gentleman bring me aside at one point and said, "Can we please get started? My wife has Parkinson's disease, and we've been here waiting for this scheduled item on the agenda." So I think it's just important to reflect on the fact that it's challenging because folks want to be able to address council and address their mayor, and I appreciate that. That's why we have opportunities for public comment. And we are trying this agenda format in ways that we can address council business that helps folks plan for items that are scheduled that are council business in that manner. So I just thought I would share that story as a counterpoint to the fact that certainly I'm sure there are elderly folks or other people that wish to comment on items not on the agenda. I'll also point out again that there is really easy access online to be able to reach out to council ward reps and the mayor's office as well. So please don't hesitate and always keep that in mind. The other thing I just will mention, this is an opportunity for folks in the audience since some interesting points were mentioned. As the city continues to work with the other forms of government and our other community members, social service providers, businesses in the community to try to help folks that are unsheltered and unhoused. And as we are managing a really tough situation simply with not enough resources, I did want to mention a couple of things. The Johnson Street Emergency Shelter is something that was never intended to be a permanent low barrier shelter. However, it is our option, and we are going to be putting some minor cost-effective improvements to that property to help folks feel more comfortable that are guests in the shelter, and also to help address some of the exterior feel for the neighbors. So we'll be improving some fencing. We are looking to secure doors, make sure we're addressing just more garbage cleanup and things like that on site. We are working with our Parks Department and Missoula Works, a contract with Missoula Works, to increase our visits to the parks and trails nearby so we can continue more rapid cleanup of garbage and other refuse that does inhibit the general public from enjoying parks. And so we're doing our best and within our current budget authority to do that. And also the improvements I spoke about on the Johnson Street site are also within our current budget authority. Because we are starting to build the modular bathrooms on site, so modular bathrooms and showers will be built in a really hefty, basically like a job site trailer, except they're much higher quality that will last. So when Johnson Street is no longer a shelter, we'll be able to move that to another location where it's needed. We are going to build that on site. The builder has received their materials, so just like most things, materials have been delayed. But we're feeling real good about the materials arriving. We'll be able to start that soon. And the intention is to create a nice size sign that we can post on the fence facing out, so we can make sure that we're just consistently informing the neighborhood what we're doing. Obviously, the room's not full of neighbors this evening, so folks won't hear this message necessarily. We want to make sure that people recognize that these are not permanent changes, but something that we are doing in the short term in order to improve the situation for people that are utilizing that shelter, as well as people that are living around it. The other thing that we've been asked to do is increase, and something we committed to the neighbors this summer when we held a public meeting, is that we are increasing our police patrols in the neighborhood and around, just to make sure that behaviors that have been reported to us that are of concern to the community, that we're addressing those behaviors should we see them. And so that's something that we are creating directed patrols as well. We do hire Black Knight Security. They provide security at the Johnson Street facility, and so they'll be working just to make sure that they're also monitoring for behaviors, especially as the weather gets warmer, and people might be encouraged to go outside more. We want to just make sure that we are providing as good a service as we possibly can to the neighborhood. So I just thought I'd take the opportunity to mention those few things to you all. And it's constantly a work in progress. And as I mentioned last week, the City Council is taking your time to participate on an urban camping work group with a number of interested parties to help come up with a host of different solutions moving forward. And thank you again for that. I'm looking forward to when we get through this and we can present on what that looks like. All right. So I'll go ahead and conclude my comments. Oh, I will mention for the public, though, we do not have a city council meeting on Monday. That is spring break for Missoula schools. We have found that it's easier on council and other staff to go ahead and post that this is not a regular council day. So there will be no city council meeting next Monday, nor any committee meetings, I believe. I'm looking across. There's no committee meetings on Wednesday. So enjoy your break, and I'll go ahead and turn that over to council comments, and I'll start with Councilor Savage.
Thank you. I'll pass tonight.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Melson?
I'll also pass tonight. Thank you.
Okay, you bet. Councilor Becerra?
Thank you. I just wanted to talk a little bit more about one of our favorite subjects, which is sidewalks. You know, whenever we talk about sidewalks, the MRA, another favorite, is bound to come up, and I just wanted to, you know, I'm sure most people know, but for those who don't, the MRA does contribute every year TIF funding for sidewalks, anywhere between $500,000 and $800,000 for sidewalks in urban renewal districts. So I just want to make sure that people know that is in addition to what we have in our CIP projects. Also, I just want to say that our staff has, for a long time, been looking for bids that are low enough to stay within the estimated expenditure for projects, and whenever they don't see that happen, the project gets delayed and gets delayed again until they can find a bid that will not increase the estimated cost. And that is to avoid passing any additional cost to property owners. You know, it's a difficult situation we're in, because providing infrastructure in an equitable way across our community is an important goal that we have had for many, many years, and we have very limited resources and ways to do it. It's either we pay for all of it and do probably half of what we do now in terms of sidewalks, and so instead of waiting 100 years to finish and fill the gaps that we have in our community, we will have to wait 200 years. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation regarding alternative ways to pay for sidewalks. I sure hope that we can find another way to fund them, another revenue source, because right now all we have is what we have. So looking forward to whatever my colleagues have been cooking in terms of additional funding mechanisms to do this. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Becerra. Councilor Carlino?
I guess I'll just continue the sidewalk conversation for a second, but I just emailed it to you all that we did submit the resolution in November, so it's been almost 4 months, but just to clarify. We certainly don't have to pick between doing more sidewalks or making people pay $9,000 for them because they live next to them, or doing less sidewalks and having the city cover the cost. We could add money onto the sidewalk from the road district fund. We added plenty of money last year onto the road district fund to cover urban camping costs, that would have been enough to, right there, just the road district portion to pay for the portion that we bill households and individuals for sidewalks. The new city council form, I'm hearing a lot of problems from constituents. They're not able to attach anything to send to council. People are trying to email city council to our group email, and they can't do it anymore. I think we should, the new form is good in some ways, but I think we should at least make it to where people can attach things onto there. And I think we should also allow the old form too, and allow people to email city council, because some people are just not able to email us. They're not able to send us things. I don't know if you all have heard this, but I've heard it from people since we switched this last week. It would be happy to work with anybody to try and make that more accommodating to constituents and to people who don't contact their city government often, especially now that it's slightly more difficult, in my opinion, to come talk to your government at these meetings. The last thing I wanted to just bring up is that the Urban Camping Working Group seems to be headed in a positive direction. One thing I wanted to flag was that it seemed like all sorts of different diverse people that are part of the group were coming to the conclusion that we do need somewhere for people to go. We can't just tell them to not camp here and not tell them where to go. And I heard people from the economic sector, social justice sector, people that are unhoused, many different people from the group all agree that we need places where people can camp along with more shelter spaces. So I saw that as a positive direction, because I'm super worried that the city's just gonna push people from place to place without telling them adequate places that they can go. So it was really cool to see economic people and people that are unhoused and policymakers agree this past week. The majority of people on there agree that an authorized campsite and places where people can sleep is part of the solution. So that was fun to see that come forward. But I think at the end of the day, I just hope that whatever we come up with that group gives places where people can sleep at night for everybody, and doesn't try to further criminalize homelessness like we often do with our current policies. And happy to pass it over.
Thank you, Councilor Carlino, and I appreciate the comments that you gave to staff about attaching the form. So I'll just mention to all council members that as we have the new constituent contact form online, we have staff working on being able to attach documents to that. But please send us any feedback that you have in regards to any of these new tools that we have made available. Councilor Jones.
Sure, just a few comments. I just wanted to make sure that we had clear messaging. I think the working group on unhoused issues is definitely working hard. I don't think there is any kind of consensus that we need an authorized campsite or that would work again. I think we're still at some higher levels of general agreement on, and then the devil can be in the details, but I think the intention is to do the best we can to do the most for that community as possible. So I just wanted to clarify that. But my regular comments I wanted to make were, I wanted to give a shout out to Lily Gladstone and all that she has accomplished. I loved the movie, Killers of the Flower Moon. I thought she did an amazing, strong job in that movie and totally held her own with Leonardo DiCaprio as her husband in that, and she gave an amazing performance. She was nominated, and I think she won on so many levels. She looked wonderfully beautiful last night. She was gorgeous. She has accomplished so much in a short time, and I think we're just seeing the beginning of an amazing career. So I am so glad she's from Montana. Makes me proud.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Jones. Councillor Nugent.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. First of all, just going to continue with my theme of the evening. There was a public comment about the public's going to pay attention to how we spend money, and that's why we should have the non-agenda items public comment earlier. Ironically, the first thing that we heard today was budget amendments, and so if somebody wanted to comment on those, they knew exactly when it was. The second thing was the tourist home item, which had several people come, and both of those were done by 6:45. So I think that this is great for the items that we are voting on, to be able, for people to be able to plan around those things and have them, because that is the actual action we are taking. So I'm just going to keep saying thank you for doing this, because I think it's the right move and I appreciate it. Conversation around sidewalks, you know, this is a tough one, and there was a comment that the city's not paying for sidewalks, only the property owners are, and that's really not true. The city contributed almost $1 million to sidewalks in this year's budget between the MRA and Road District and everywhere else. There is obviously a portion that comes from property owners. The reality is, and again, I am looking forward to the conversation on how we fund it, because it seems like one we have every couple of years, and it's a good one to have. I don't know where in the budget we're going to find more money to do this, so the conversation kind of becomes, do we do less sidewalks in a year, or do we have property owners help us meet some of our goals? And it's a tough one. I struggle with it. The people who came and commented made a very compelling case, and I understand that. I also do believe that the programs that we have are very, very good. So I just wanted to kind of add to the theme of all of us talking about sidewalks in our public comments. But with that, that's all I've got tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Nugent. Councillor Anderson?
Thanks so much. Yeah, definitely looking forward to the conversation around sidewalks. And I mean, there was a point in time where literally the entirety of the sidewalk improvement was put on the homeowners, and we have been moving towards figuring out an equitable share of that. And you know, it's obviously evolving, but you know, the city is not in a position to pay for everything all the time for everything. So that is the struggle in which we find ourselves in. I want to just very quickly give a shout out to the Hellgate girls varsity basketball game, or varsity team for, you know, they played in the state championship on Saturday night. They did not win, but they played with a lot of heart, and it was fun to see the community come out and support them. Likewise, the Sentinel boys varsity basketball team played in the boys state final, and unfortunately did not win. But I have to give a shout out to them, because even though it was pretty obvious that they weren't going to win, they ran through the tape and played hard all the way until the buzzer. And I think that just shows great character on their part. And so hats off to them. Second is nothing to be ashamed of, and they played with a lot of heart and soul, and it was fun to be there and watch. So congratulations to all of them, and we look forward to seeing what they do next year. So thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Vasika.
Thank you. Before my scheduled remarks, I just want to follow up on what my colleague, Mr. Carlino, said regarding the new email format. It looks like on this Wednesday at 9 a.m. there is an informational item going over the new format. So I guess the new communication form. So I would encourage all people who want to communicate with City Council. I think this would be a good informational item to look at. Also, regarding the new agenda format, the past 4 years I've had constituents, the media, my parents ask me what time were scheduled items going to happen that Monday night. And for the past 4 years, I've always said I have no idea when the meeting's actually going to start doing the actual scheduled items. It all depends on how many citizens come in and voice their very valid concerns about how local government is operating. And so I I like the new format in the way that we do go over the scheduled items first. However, I also agree with what's been said during public comment for everyone and to individual messages to me tonight from constituents. People, they have very different feelings about this format. So I think this is only the second meeting that we've done it in, and so it is clunky. I was all on board for trying it. I'm still on board for trying it. I don't know my official position on it yet, but I want to continue at least trying it for now until we kind of get the groove on. Now, what I was originally going to say is there's if you've never heard of Skills USA, I don't know much about the program, to be honest. I just recently heard about it. One of my friends is involved in it. And it is a career and technical student organization that serves students and members enrolled in training programs in trade, technical, and skilled service occupations, which are very much needed and a great career path to go down. The Missoula Skills USA chapter at Sentinel High School, they are raising money, and they have been working at Grizz football game concessions, Community Monday at the Mar Bar next door, talking to businesses for sponsorships, and now they're working day and night to put on their annual Motors and More car show. So if anyone has a few extra bucks and they wish to donate, you can send a check to Sentinel High School with Skills USA fundraiser in the memo, or you can reach out to me and I can get you in contact with other methods of donations. I usually don't like to use my platform for asking people for money that doesn't go through the whole city, but I think that this is a great program, especially since everyone's really concerned about what their children's future is going to look like, what the future is going to look like in general, and we all know, especially with AI coming, like we all know that change is going to massively happen in careers and industries all around, but I think we always need those trades and those service industries. I think that those are very important skills to have throughout your entire life, and I think it'll be a long time before AI or something like that can change the, I guess not change the oil in your car. I'm rambling now. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Councilor Vasica. I just looked it up. All right. Let's see. Moving online, Councilor Jordan. Comments tonight?
Yeah, thanks. Just real quick. I wanted to thank the member of the audience that came in. I didn't actually get her name, to let us know that there are parks and sidewalks that she feels unsafe going to because of our houseless individuals. And I just want to encourage her to please make sure to let the compliance team know when there's unsafe behavior going on in our unhoused community, because right now I'm currently not aware of any parks or sidewalks that are unsafe to go to because of our unhoused population. And so I just wanted to remind anyone who's still listening, and perhaps the woman who's in the audience, that we do have a compliance team, and you can call and you can let them know your concerns, or you can lodge a complaint online. But currently there are no safety issues related to any parks or sidewalks that we're aware of due to our unhoused population. The other bit I wanted to touch on real quick, since everybody's talking about sidewalks, is I just wanted to say, you know, Daniel has done some homework on this, and he's got, and I look forward to this conversation about how we can fund sidewalks in the future. The particular piece of homework that Daniel has is some information from city staff who can confirm how much it would cost on every $100,000 assessed to cover our sidewalk program through our roads department. And so we do have some solid information about that, but also I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with colleagues. I know did a little field work back in probably early December on this one with colleagues on council, and just really asked them to help keep the conversation going and come up with some creative ideas about how we can pay for this, because it does affect people's bottom line. And I think that there are some ways that we can come up with some funding that could help some folks. The third thing I want to touch on is just real quick, just a little bit of criminal justice information. Our current jail on any given day is about 75% pretrial. That means those are folks who are being held before they have been convicted of a crime. So they're being held in jail, and often beyond 2 days, if they're still in jail, they're there because they cannot afford their bail. And I just wanted to make folks aware of a new initiative that the Missoula Tenants Union has put together. So if you, through Venmo, text money and put the description as support, Then the funds that they collect are going to be used to help some of our more critical cases of folks who are being detained pre-trial, so they've not been found guilty. And the only reason why they're still in jail is because they can't afford their bail. So if you send the Missoula Tenants Union money via Venmo and use the hashtag or just the description put support, then they will use that to help folks who are really suffering, who are losing their family, their job, their contacts, their things that happen, which are the unintended consequences of pretrial incarceration. And I just think this is a really neat initiative. And that's all I've got tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Jordan. All right. I believe that wraps up then all council comments, and that is item number 12. So that brings us to the end of our meeting, and I will go ahead and adjourn City Council meeting for March 11th at 8:08 p.m. Thanks, everybody.